Val, I'm honored to be here asking you questions because you're really inspiring to me. And so I want to first start. Can you tell us can you tell us a little bit about how your Purple Oasis started and how it is now from when you started?
Shani, I'm delighted to be here. The Purple Oasis, first of all, the name Purple Oasis, and I don't know why I don't have my purple on tonight, but purple is my favorite color. But I see you representing me with purple, so thank you. But the Purple Oasis grew out of the fact that the family started purchasing land. At the time, we owned the nightclub Vels on the Circle at the intersection of Fair Hill and Cedar. And we had a lot of parking, but we needed more parking. So what my husband did was he started buying lots across the street. And families were transitioning, going into the suburbs. So once he bought the first couple of homes and the land, then word got out that John Scott is buying land and he's paying cash for the land. So if anybody wants to sell right away to move, you go and talk to him. So we ended up buying and ended up with a couple of acres of land right there at the corner of Fair Hill and Cedar, with the intent of clearing that land for parking. But as fate would have it, we didn't need the parking because other parking opened up for us in the area. So we never did clear the land for parking. So we fast forward and we did a wonderful Sunday dinner buffet at the club. Every Sunday we had around 300 or 400 people that would come. But on a Friday and Saturday evening, my husband and I would drive out in the country. We knew people that owned farms in Ashtabula, in Youngstown, down in the Akron area. And we would buy our fresh vegetables. So my husband said one day, what we should do is you should build a greenhouse on the land. And I said, a greenhouse? He said, yeah, grow your own vegetables and things. So I said to myself, well, that sounds like an odd thing to do, me build a greenhouse and grow vegetables in it. But fast forward, I did know that there were high tunnels. I had seen them in traveling through the South and around the country, but I'd never thought of putting one right in the heart of University Circle. So that's what we did. We didn't put the tunnel there initially, but we started cultivating the land and the neighbors became interested. And we cleared maybe 50 tons of rocks off of the land. We didn't have any water, but we took jugs of water and got from neighbors. So that's how the Oasis came into being, as the fact that someone says, we want a garden and we have to go to the land bank. And I said, no, you don't. We have land that we can use. So we cleared the land and made a V that first in 2009 when we were out there. And in that V, we planted turnips, mustards, all of the things that we in the neighborhood and the community love and eat, peppers, onions, and that kind of thing. And it just grew in leaps and bounds through the years.
That's wonderful. So you started that mission in 2009, and now it's 2021. A lot of time has passed. What would you say is Vel's Purple Oasis mission with your?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
The mission of the Purple Oasis is to provide healthy, nutritious food to those in the neighborhood where we don't have stores. There are no grocery stores. There's nothing within walking distance. So the purpose of the Oasis actually is twofold, to have peace and serenity, a place to relax, a place to de-stress, and a place to be able to be involved in being a part of where your food comes from, to actually plant the seeds, plant the starters, dig in the soil, and connect with Mother Earth. And that way you know exactly where your food comes from, that it doesn't come from a packaged bag of greens in the grocery store. That's the second or third phase, but it starts when you plant the seeds, when you water, and you go out every morning and make sure that the birds or the squirrels, have not eaten your produce during the evening. And then you're able to harvest it. And what we also did was we set up a portable cooking unit in the garden. So not only were we able to grow the food, but we were able to grow it, prep it out there in the garden, cook it, and eat it. So that you don't get any more organic than that.
Is there a special recipe? Is there a special recipe? Is there a special thing that you like to cook traditionally at the Oasis?
One of the things that I love to prepare meals with, and that's greens, collard greens, mustards, turnips, and cabbage and peppers. I grew up in the South. I'm from Mississippi. I'm a transplant to Cleveland. And every growing season, my grandmother, if she had nothing else in the garden, but she had tons of stuff in there, she always had plenty of cabbage. And we did everything from coleslaw to roasted cabbage to cabbage that was sauteed. We made salads out of it, everything that you can imagine that you can do. Stuffed cabbage. My mother would stuff the cabbage with cornbread and sauteed vegetables and peppers. And then we would just pickle it. We would can it. So if you ask what my favorite item from the garden is, I have to say cabbage, and then collard greens would be next.
So I see that you teach workshops, classes
I
at
do.
the Purple Oasis.
Right.
Does a lot of people from the community come? Like, what's your what is an average student? What do they look like? Are they what age range are you teaching?
Well, the classes are informal, and I'd rather use the word instead of teaching that I share. Many of the people in the community, in the neighborhood that I am, came from the South like me. So when you say you're going to teach them to cook, that's just completely out of the question, because all of my neighbors on Frank Avenue, Colonial Court, Hudson, and those streets know how to cook. They probably know how to cook better than I know how to cook. So my mission was to share with them methods and ways to prepare our favorite soul food dishes in a lighter or healthier way. I know my grandmother would get up and we would go out and pick the greens, and my grandmother would wash them, and they use the word chiffonade now, but I didn't know anything about chiffonading then. I just know she rolled them and she cut them in strips, and she washed them until you could see that there was no grit in the bottom of the pan of the water. And she would cook them for hours. Well, we fast forward, and I learned the better way in my travels and in my research that you don't have to cook these organic, fresh greens. You don't have to cook the life out of them. So what I share with them, let's try these questions we've got, why we saute them. And they wanted to know, what is the difference between saute and frying them? I said, well, when you saute them, you can either use a vegetable stock to cook them with, or lightly oil, and you don't have to actually have any meat in it. May says, well, Vel, that's utterly impossible to cook collard greens without a ham hock or without salt pork. So I said, well, okay, let's cook together and let me show you a way that I've learned. So I had a vegetable stock, I had my skillet, I had my fresh greens cut, chiffonaded, and we sauteed them, and then we put pepper and a little salt in them, a bay leaf, and we just sort of tossed them, and we cooked them in about 20 minutes. They were tender because they're fresh. They taste delicious. And these were women who were in their 70s and 80s and said, my God, I've been cooking greens for hours, for years. I had no idea that there was another way. So that's why I said we share the information, and they take it and share it with another neighbor. But the main thing is that you see it right there. You're right there. You were there in the process of growing it. You cultivated it. You harvested it. So now you are preparing it. You're cooking it. So that's the best lesson. The way we teach, we teach with the things that we have at hand in the community. So that's
a collaboration.
a
It's a
collaboration.
collaboration.
Right. You show people different methods. It's just like sharing tools. Instead of sharing tools, I share knowledge.
That's wonderful. Can you talk more about where your passion of cooking healthy food came from? I know it started with your husband. Can you explain to everyone about that, about Don Scott and the Don Scott house? It'll all connect.
Well, the healthier cooking piece, the modification of how we prepare our wonderful soul food, and every ethnic group has a soul food. I know many people think that soul food is indigenous to Black families, to African Americans, but it's really not. Everybody has a soul food. It has a food that brings them comfort and that they enjoy. The Italians with their pastas and different kinds of food. So my husband was a businessman. He was a professional bowler, and he traveled around the country. And he grew up in a family of 12 or 13 children. So his mother was a very good cook, and she cooked meals that you could stretch, like beans with ham hocks. And he said that she cooked cornbread, she cooked candied yam, she cooked all of the traditional foods that, we love to eat. But a lot of them had a lot of sodium in them, a lot of fat in them. So once he came back and says, well, the doctor says I have hypertension. Well, I had not heard that word before. So what do you mean hypertension? He said, well, it's high blood pressure. I said, okay. And I have to change the way I eat. So he says, but before you say anything, I'm not going to eat any bland, dull food. So I said, okay, we've got that out of the way. So what are you saying? He said, well, if you can come up with a way that we can keep the flavor and the soul in the black-eyed peas and the collard greens and the turnips and all the foods that I like, then I'm willing to make a change. Other than that, he says, the typical, I gotta die from something, so I may as well die happy from eating what I love to eat. So I says, well, you're not gonna leave me here with 2 kids. So we're gonna find a way to modify, our wonderful global soul food. So that's where we started traveling. We went to West Africa and visited 9 or 10 countries. We were gone maybe for a couple of months, and just seeing how, as he said, they prepared their foods and the lifestyle. And when I came back, one of the things that we did see there, that there was a lot of family connection, that there were, like I grew up in the South, there were 2 or 3 families that lived together, the mother, father, the grandparents, maybe an older aunt was in the family, and they all participated in helping with the kids and preparing the meals. And there was a lot of serenity there. People were more relaxed, the hustle and bustle coming from the business community for us, was something that we had not been accustomed to doing. So once we came back to Cleveland, again, going back to our Sunday dinner buffet where we had 300 or 400 people on Sundays, I made modifications. I came back and told my staff what I had experienced, and I wanted to try a couple of new things. And we wanted to develop a vegetable stock that we could saute and cook our greens and our beans and our vegetable in, but we're not going to tell our customers that we're making a major change. We're just going to try it out and see what happens. So after 2 or 3 weeks of watching the plates come back in the kitchen after we had cleared the table and the plates were clean and no one complained about there was a different taste, that's when I knew that we had hit upon something that we could modify. If I could satisfy the different segments of people in the community with our soul food and with our greens and with our methodology of coming up with different cooking methods, then it would be just a matter of time before we take several of our mainstays like the greens and beans and our vegetable stock and expand that and in expanding that, also being able to go out and teach and share. So that's how the Vel Scott's Healthy You came into being. And that's how we were able to help reverse my husband's congestive heart failure by completely changing the way that he was eating.
Unfortunately, Mr. Scott has passed, but he lived a long, healthy life before that. But you have a house in honor of him, Don Scott House. Would you like to talk about how that came to be and what you want the Don Scott House to be?
Well, the Don Scott House, we created that as a place that would be right in the neighborhood, right where the people were. As I mentioned, those 4 streets, there's Frank, Norman, Hudson. There were 4 or 5 streets that people communicated with each other and knew each other. Families grew up together there. So we knew if we took something out of the community, that more than likely, we knew that there were already places outside of the community that were very nice that people really didn't partake of. So we decided to take the house. We rescued a home directly across the street from the garden, and we called it the Don Scott House. We knocked the walls down. We put earth and plaster in it at that time. And we started inviting people in, to watch a movie, The Forks Over Knives, What the Heck, just different movies that talked about different methodologies of cooking. So you see it now, and when we got the house, it was it needed a lot of work, and that was in 2009. And we did some repairs in 2009, and then we fast forward in 2008, we did a little bit more, and then in 2020, last year, if you will see the ceiling on one of the other pictures, which was plastered, it was a 2-story home. We took the ceiling out and made it into just a single frame home with no stairs, no upstairs, just the downstairs. We opened it up and we made it so that we put a TV in so we could show people various movies or various presentations that we had. And now it's a very beautiful, we put an epoxy floor in. It's a beautiful place. We have portable kitchen equipment that people from the neighborhood can come just as they are. You don't have to go home and get dressed up. Those are some of the cooking stations that we have. We have tops that we had made to put on there. And you can combine those 2 cooking units and you can have a class that you can accommodate 8 people around that one table and still have your social distancing. And again, purple, my favorite color. So it's a beautiful setting and it's comfortable and people enjoy coming there. They just knock on the door and come in. Don't have to, sometimes they come in house shoes. Sometimes they just come and we can prepare a meal there, a full course meal, whatever anyone wants, we can do it there and show them how to do it. Then they can take the meal home, share it with their families, or just come and sit and talk. So it's a community respite. It's a place of health and wellness and comfort and just a happy place to be.
Yeah, me and Danny really enjoyed our visit with you this past Tuesday. It's amazing how much you accomplished. To look at these photos, you got so much done. Would you explain a little about the partners that you've had over the years that helped you create, like the Strawberry Bell House and your herb garden and like like Oberlin, and your neighbor Jim Baker? If you could talk about some of your partners that has helped you over these years to get make Purple Oasis what it is.
Well, we were able to get the Purple Oasis off the ground. Jim Baker, who lives next door and who runs a halfway house there, he was just a wealth of information. He was the one that told me that the house was available, and he said it has a solid roof and a good foundation. The family that owns it, the gentleman has gone into a nursing home and he's not coming back. It's just he and his sister, and she has a home in the Heights someplace. So she's not going to come back to this home. So maybe you should talk to her and see if you can buy the home from her. So naturally we did, and we ended up getting the home at a very reasonable price. But Jim Baker was an excellent resource, and he still is, because he is our security, because he's there. The people who are members of the halfway house, they look out for. No security system could provide the kind of lookout and security that these people do. If people come by and they slow down too long, what are you looking at? You know, do we know you? And no, we're just looking at house. Well, don't stop at Miss Vel's place. You know, if she doesn't know you're here, you know, you need to keep moving. So we have that kind of collaboration. Also, you mentioned the Strawbell Greenhouse. Brad Massey, who was with the Agrarian Center in Oberlin and the George Jones Farm, came to us and built this. There are some pictures where we actually show the footprint, where we actually laid the Strawbell greenhouse out. Well, that was 8 or 9 years ago. So it has seen its better days, but it may be down, but it's not out. Because what we're doing now is we're going to take and replace the front part that you see and keep the back area and make that like a patio area. We're going to put plants and flowers in there. And this is part of the back of that Strawbell greenhouse. It's the spaceship bottle garden that we're putting back there. We had a group of collaborators, partners from Case Western Reserve University's fraternities came. They were engineering students, and they came to us when they first came to Case. And after they graduated, a couple of them came back and did this glass wall that we had. So during the summer, what we're going to do is have chairs and tables out there. It's going to be like a bistro. We're going to have music. We're going to have food right in the heart of the hood, right in the heart of our own neighborhood. So it's a great piece. You know, those bottles. I went around the neighborhood and collected beer bottles from taverns and wine bottles. Kids thought they were going to have to get intervention for me, and I told them, no, it's a project we're doing. I'm not drinking all of these beers, but we are. we do have them for our project. So the bars in Little Italy and in the Larchmere area and the Quincy and Woodland area would save their beer bottles for us, and I'd go and pick those up. And that's what that wall is, you know, which is a beautiful setting. I can't wait until we get our tables out there and our music and our food from the garden.
Yes, it's cool that you recycled those bottles. That's really awesome. So Val, how has COVID-19 affected your the garden? And how are you proceeding with the garden in the future with this new environment?
Well, actually, COVID-19, I can't say that it really affected us. One of the things that came out of COVID-19 for us was an opportunity to just take a deep breath, to slow down, to go inside of the house, the Don Scott house, and sit and say, you know, where we've been, what we started with, where we are now, and what can we do to enhance what we do? What can we do to reach more people? We can't have in-person meetings. So then we talked about Zoom. Well, we said, well, everybody doesn't have Zoom. I says, well, everybody has, most people, no matter what the income level is, has an iPhone, a cell phone. So we started talking to people and we started getting word out. There's not a lot of, some of the people didn't have internet. So what we did was we got people together. We did flyers, and with our mask on, we knocked on doors, left a flyer, and then we have phone numbers to people. We asked them to call your neighbors, call the people in your CMHA building, and see if they would like to do a class from home, you know, using their phone and Zoom or whatever other method that you use where you can, you know, be visual. So that opened up a whole new area for us because people said, well, we can do this on our phone. And that's what we did. So it gave us a new avenue to connect with people. And it actually expanded what we did because instead of reaching maybe 10 or 15 people in a class, now we were able to reach 30, 40, 50 people who would tell each other about it. And we could have the class by Zoom and we could cook and share recipes. So it opened up a whole new world for us. So I guess you could say Zoom in one way was a blessing in disguise.
Yes, there's good and bad things that that we all learned during this pandemic, and Zoom is one of them. Some people are sick of it, and some people are enjoying the possibilities because you can talk to anybody around the country. Now you could be showing somebody to cook in California. So technology, I think that's it has its perks. So, what challenges does your a program like yours? What is it encountering, and what is the best way for us to get involved, or people to get involved if they're interested in getting involved in a way to assist you with the
sharing information and sharing methods and ways that we can do things. We could always use, we're self-funded. We started all of this, the Don Scott House and the garden with family funds. So being able to say, get funding to do the rain barrel project would help us tremendously. We need fencing that would help. So if we could get some in-kind sort of gifts, that would be wonderful. A grant, let's just say, to get us supplies. We have this wonderful high tunnel. We need like doors. This year, for the first time, fencing was taken down in between our property and property that someone else's owns. So within the last couple of weeks, the deer came in and ate everything that we planted. So having some fencing put in, some resources to get some additional fencing would help. And what you're doing in the Collingwood area, we would love to beautify the area along Frank Avenue with planters. We'd love, I don't have the same kind of community that you have because our community is an older community and most of the families in the community are older people. But we get some young families that are there that just are not in a position to, say, do a lot of volunteering. So resources and knowledge of just sharing what you know and sharing ways of maybe getting more funding that we could get. Like, as I said, we're self-funded. So a grant to get us a large container to keep our tools in. Between the 2 or 3 of us, we put tools during the growing season. My car has everything from sometimes a wheelbarrow in it, lawnmower. You would think that we were part of the homeless community because all that what we own from the garden, we have to carry this so that it's not taken or borrowed and not returned. So just some little things, if we've done what we've done actually with elbow grease and with just self-funding, what we could do with just a small amount of help, with a small grant would just be tremendous in helping us, and volunteers. We would love to have that. The picture that's on the screen now is the part that we're going to tear down. Well, we need some volunteers to help us take that down so that we can have our wall in the back, and that will be an open seating area again, where people can come and sit and relax during the summer. There's not a lot of green space around us. So our place has lots of pockets of greenery where people can come sit on the benches in the evening, just relax and get away from being inside all day long. So just some small resources, a container for the supplies that we have would be a huge asset to what we have. Right next to the Strawbell greenhouse is a pergola that that someone donated and built last year. Underneath there, we're going to do cooking demos and again, workshops that people right in the neighborhood can walk over. So that pergola it's a great space to be able to do something. There's so much potential there. So many things that we already have in place. So just a little help from our friends would help tremendously.
And Val, I saw on your website that there's a podcast coming soon.
There's the what?
A podcast. It said there's a podcast coming.
That's what we're working on, and that's what I could use some help on. Again, sometimes when you're the chief cook, chief engineer, the planner, the cleaner, the picker up, when I had so many hats on, we started the podcast, but then I had to make changes and I did not pursue that. But we'd love to have someone who has the expertise to help us launch a podcast. And also social media. We have some funding to with stipends and to pay someone to come and help us do some of the work at getting the word out as to what we do and getting us more collaboration with different organizations around the city that are doing a similar kind of work that we're doing. So the podcast is something that's in the wings, it's waiting. I just need someone who wants to do a podcast and wants some experience and wants to be involved in helping us in the community. So yes.
Well, Val, it was wonderful hearing about your mission and what you're doing over there at the Purple Oasis. Is there anything else you'd like to add that I maybe missed talking? Anything else you'd like to add before we turn the questions to?
We're in need of volunteers. People who have artistic abilities, people who we'd like to do some wonderful murals on the grounds. We'd like to do some signage out there. So anyone who has these kind of skills that would like to become involved, be part of our volunteer team, we'd love to have you.
Okay, thank you so much, Val, for talking to us this evening and sharing the Purple Oasis with us.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much.